Good morning, everyone. I'm Kevin Allen, and I'm joined by my usual broadcast partner, former NHL defenseman Tom Laidlaw, who played 11 seasons for the New York Rangers and Los Angeles Kings. This is the Laidlaw and Allen Report. We come to you twice a week to talk all things hockey. And Tom, much to talk about today. We're going to talk about religion in the dressing room. We're going to talk about the Gay Pride parade that you attended, representing the New York Rangers. We're going to, of course, talk about the Stanley Cup. We've got coaching changes that are still in the works here. Plenty to go. So let's go first to the Stanley Cup final. We've got crowned the champion, and the right team won. Colorado was the better team throughout the series, throughout the playoffs. And what I liked about it is this was a high-scoring Colorado team, and they won on a 2-1 game. They clinched it. They had to play defense. They had to hold the Lightning to one goal, and they did that. I think it really kind of showed they are a full-service team. They're not just about offense. They're a great hockey team.
Yeah, they were. And even Nathan MacKinnon, who I think is a fantastic player, didn't score a whole lot during the series. And did he finally score? Was his first goal last game?
Yeah, he scored a goal for sure last game.
Yeah. So, no, I agree. And you know what else, too? And I'm with you 100%. I admire Colorado. I admire what Joe Sakic did to put the team together. I admire his choice to pick Bednar as the coach when Patrick Roy resigned. I think he just put it all together, talent-wise, character. He's got it all. And they did it with maybe, I don't know, do we call it subpar goaltending?
They had one game that was particularly bad. But I thought Kemper was good.
Yep. No, you're right. But I think, now we've gotten used to the teams that are winning. I got these big name goaltenders like Vasilevsky's one, and that just, they didn't have that. But like you said, it wasn't like he was bad at all. So no, I love it. You know what else too? Like I'm a Ranger fan, King fan. Obviously, there's two teams I played for. They treated me fantastic. But I've fallen in love with the Tampa Bay Lightning too. They're a character team, man. They really impressed me with how they just never quit. And Cooper was fantastic as a coach for them. So both teams there deserve to be there, but you're right. Colorado was the best team.
Yeah, and I was fearful. I had said going into the last game, like I felt like I was making an appearance on another podcast, and I said, and I was way guilty of this myself. Instead of looking at how strong the Colorado Avalanche, I was looking for reasons why Tampa was losing. And I think we weren't celebrating how good this Colorado team was. So I don't want to get too carried away because Colorado won it and they deserved to win it. John Cooper said as much afterward. They were the better team. But wow, look at the run they've been on in 21 months' time. They won the so 44 playoff games in 21 months they won. With different rosters. Last year's one of their top lines last year, the Gord line. Barclay Goodrow was on that, and the kid that ended up in Calgary as well, whose name right now escapes me. But anyway, they lost all of them. They changed 7 guys off of last year's team as well, but they still played hard, and I think Hedman was hurt too. He didn't seem like he was as dominant as he usually is.
It looks like they built that culture there, right? That we talk about with so many teams where you just kind of like Boston's had that culture, where you just insert some different players. And yes, maybe they're not as good talent-wise, but it's like, okay, this is the way we play. We don't quit. We do the little things right. And Cooper really impressed me too. I didn't know him as well as a coach, but listening to him talk and the adjustments he made along the way. I talked to a couple other coaches that are friends of mine talking about the adjustments he made, particularly against the Rangers. When they were down 2-0 and then changed things around. Just man, there's nothing you don't like. Everything that the general manager's done there too had cap problems. And you could argue last year maybe they got a little lucky that Kucherov missed the whole season, so that gave him cap relief. But still, they've done a good job all the way around now.
Yeah, when John Tortorella, I can't remember when we talked about this, but when he was hired, he talked a lot about pride, and one of the things he said was he doesn't like that word culture. He said, I say it all the time. I don't like it. He said, I like standard. He said, we have a certain standard the way we play it. I don't like culture. He said, even though I use it. And he said, the standard is an everyday thing. He said, it's not something, if it happens on Tuesday, you address it on Tuesday. If you fall below your standard, you don't wait till Wednesday. Which I thought was, what an incredible speech that was.
Yeah, he's good. He's good.
No,
so what's going to happen with Colorado going forward? How are they cap wise? Are they okay?
No, I wouldn't say they're okay. I mean, they got to get Nichushkin signed, and the priority is McKinnon. You just set aside McKinnon's $10 million, because I think you got to give McKinnon $10 million.
Yeah, maybe you could argue more than that too, right?
Yeah, maybe, but Renton is at 9 and change, and I mean, at some point, you're in a cap world.
Yeah,
you have to, you got to, you got to leave some money so you're surrounded by talent. Now,
Sidney Crosby did that, right?
Yeah, for sure he did, and and the difference between. Is your lifestyle going to be different if it's 11 million or 10 million? I know. Because first of all, the government's going to get 500,000 of that.
Right.
So, and then
5 million of that.
Well, no, but I'm just saying of that extra million.
Oh, I get you.
Yeah, between 10 and 11, you're going to get half of that extra million, and you're paying your agent his 3%? Is that how it works?
Yep, 3%.
So it's just going to be eaten up pretty quickly. So if that's the case, you might as well leave that million for, somebody else. So, but I think Nichushkin has to be a priority as well. I think they got Berhovsky, who's up as well. Mm-hmm. So they'll have to make some decisions there. I would think he's the guy that perhaps could be odd man out if they couldn't afford all of them. But I got to believe they're going to make an effort. Nichushkin ended up being one of their top players. So offensively and defensively, and he's a big player. He's 6'4". So.
And then McCarr's all signed up though, right? He's
he sure is. And he showed me something too, just the way he played defensively. And we want to think of him because he can go like Paul Coffey. I think the impression is, well, maybe he's like Paul Coffey, but no, he's not anything. He gets back and plays, great.
He's all around. He does it all. He uses his speed for both ends of the ice. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I thought it was a great, entertaining final. I think they got their money's worth. Your thoughts on the new television coverage this year? We got ESPN in the final. I thought they did a reasonable job.
I've heard a lot of criticism, but I'm with you. I'm watching the game. I'm going, maybe I just don't pay attention to it as much. Like I'm paying attention to the game, not what everybody else is saying. I don't know. I didn't think it was bad at all. I thought it was good.
Yeah. I mean, Ray Farrell's a good analyst. I don't know how anybody could complain about him. He knows the game. He's, relatively glib. I like Eddie Olczyk a lot.
Yeah.
So, when he's not on there, I think about it. But there's nothing wrong with the ESPN crew. And I got to say that I think between periods, they're not as good as TNT, that panel that
you like them?
That panel is pretty good. Bissonnette is lively.
Yeah, he's got all the pieces there, right?
He's got good shtick. And I think Wayne has improved.
Yep.
Wayne was a little stiff when he started out. And he's less stiff now.
Yeah. Tockett's good. Tockett's good. He's very knowledgeable.
Tockett's very good. Yeah. So and Anson Carter is good. Yep. ESPN, Messier was an unbelievable player. He is not an unbelievable analyst.
A little dry, right?
Yeah. And I don't think he does his homework. You got to call around.
Yeah.
You got to get some information.
Now,
Chelios was in the Messier mold, I thought, at the beginning, but I thought he improved. He stepped up. There was a couple of funny comments that he had that I thought he's getting comfortable in the role, and I like his. He's got that little button is loose, so the tie is down a little bit. So I think he is improving.
I would bet you it's got to be, even though Chelios is a fantastic personality, big personality, had a great career. Being on the stage with Mark Messier is probably a little bit nerve-wracking too, right?
Yeah.
But he's very calm and it's not fooling around and joking. Although he tried a little bit, I just don't think that's his personality. So it probably took Chelios a while to say, okay, I need to be quiet.
Yeah, and I think with some of those guys too, when you're star players like they were, I think it's harder. But what I would say to if I was the producer of that show, I would say, be Keith Jones. Don't be Barry Melrose. No. And by that I mean, I remember talking to a general manager who said, "How long has Barry Melrose been on ESPN?" I said, "I don't know, 15 years, 18 years." Like, it was a long time. And he said, "I have not received one phone call from Barry Melrose." And he goes, "I'm a general manager of a pretty prominent team." He said, right. He said, "Barry Melrose has never called me." Yeah. So he said, "How can you be the lead analyst thing and never call, the general manager?" And, his point was Barry just wasn't working at it. And he goes, "I hear from Keith Jones all the time." And Keith Jones, he does his homework. He goes and he goes to the morning skates and he talks to people and he gets involved. So.
JD was the king of that. When I was just retiring, I started doing some work on the radio and then did some work with the San Jose Sharks. I talked to JD all the time. We'd been teammates, and at that point, he was at the top of the mountain for broadcasters. And that was one of the biggest things he taught me, was calling around everybody, watching all the games. He had one of those big old satellite dishes. So,
yeah. Well, I think you got to do the work. You got to do the work even when you're an analyst. Ray Ferraro does the work. Yep. I've seen him in action. He's working in those morning skates. He's working it. So that TSN, when you come up through TSN, I think you develop it no different than an NHL team. You develop a work ethic. Yeah. The Gord Millers, the Darren Dreggers, the Bob McKenzies.
Yeah, those guys. Yes, you're going to be on stage with those guys. You better be prepared. Yeah,
because they're grinding. They're in the corners. They got the elbows up. They're working it. If you want to.
Who's your favorite out of that crew? Maybe I'll get you in trouble asking this question. Out of that TSN crew,
well, first of all, I've just known Bob forever, and I just think the world of Bob, and he's not only a great reporter, but he's just a classy guy. But I know them all, and I like them all.
Elliott's got a good sense of humor too.
Oh, I love Elliott. Yeah, I love Elliott. So, and I'm a big Gord Miller guy too. I love his philosophy in life. One time, Gord and I were talking about engaging on social media, which I simply do not do ever. And Gord says, "Oh, I'm totally with you." He says, "Just think about this from this perspective." He said, "You're walking down the street and a guy engages you and starts yelling at you. Right. Now, do you stop and yell at him right back, or do you just keep walking?" He says, "Well, in real life, you just keep walking." He says, "But in social media, you stop and you yell at the guy back on social media." And he says, "Really, you should just keep walking."
That's true. Yeah, just don't respond to those. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, especially if you've got the name and this person does, because if you stop, he wins. So and I just thought about that. And I remember once too talking to Gord, we were covering I think it was Board of Governors meetings, and we're in the men's bathroom and at the urinal, and all of a sudden the owners come in and they're debating stuff, and there's like 4 of us or 5 of us at all the urinals, and the owners left, and Gord, as we were washing our hands, said, "I just think you and I just practiced the yellow urinalism," he said, right there. Because we heard their conversation, but I'm a big fan of, like I said, I like all those TSN. And the guy that kind of heads the team, Steve Dryden, I've known for 40 years. And he's one of the, dedicated hockey guys I've ever met.
Was he with the Hockey News for many years?
Yes, he was. He was the editor for many years, but now he runs the hockey coverage, and he does tremendous.
They tried to lure you away from USA Today to the Hockey News.
Yeah, years ago, Steve tried to hire me for sure. So that was at the time it was a tough decision, to be honest with you. Yeah. Money talks, and I was at that point, I was looking to make more money and all that kind of stuff. So the other thing I would talk about, because I think it's kind of interesting. After it was over, there are many people that said, you can't win with Nazem Kadri. You can't win with him because you know what he does during the playoff things. He gets out of hand. He does something stupid. We've all heard it.
Sure.
He'll do something stupid. He'll cost you. So you can't win. You can't win with Kadri. So when it was over, Kadri said, "You know what? For all those people who said that, they can kiss my ass." That's what he said. That is what he said.
That pretty much sums up who he is. From what I see,
well,
that sums up who he is.
How do you feel about that? Because I bet you and I are going to disagree about this. So do you think that was what he should have said?
Well, I mean, he really so he really wasn't prompted that, right? Did they ask him the question? Like,
I think they did. I think they must have. I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure someone must have said, people said that you can't win with Kadri. What you think? He said, well, those people, yeah.
Well, you look at players like maybe Marty St. Louis, and that's not the same kind of player at all. But he had a little burr up his saddle, I think, because he was never drafted. He was a small player. Probably everybody said that he was never going to make it in the NHL, and he carried that burr around, and that was very successful. That helped him be a successful player because he was always out there trying to prove them wrong. I think Kadri's the same way. I mean, you go back to his days in Toronto. What Toronto probably looks back now, and that's exactly what they need in their lineup as a player like Kadri to win in the playoffs because of the way he acted. Now it's the other way around. I have no problem with it whatsoever. I think he's made mistakes in the past. Brad Marchand's made mistakes in the past and done stuff to hurt his team, but they won cups in Boston. So I think he's obviously got some fire to him. He sticks up for himself. I thought it was fantastic what he said.
Yeah, I figured you would because I hated it, and this is why. I did grow up with a football mentality, not necessarily a hockey mentality. In the football world, and I've told this story before, but it certainly bears repeating. In my previous life, as I said, prior to hockey, I covered Major League Baseball for one season. But even while I covered hockey for all those years at USA Today, I actually covered about 200 NFL games because the hockey editor and the NFL editor were the one and the same in the early years of my career. And so he would send me out to do football. So I did a lot of football. And I got to know a lot of football guys. And Freddie Glover and Lomas Brown, Lomas is now an analyst, went to their first NHL game. And I was walking through the dressing room of the Detroit Lions, and all of a sudden Lomas Brown motions me over. He goes, we heard you're the hockey guy from USA Today. I said, yeah, I actually am. Yeah. And he goes, we got to know. He said, Freddie and I went to the game and there was all this fighting. He goes, then we got back here and we were telling the other guys and laughing about the guys that were fighting. And he said, the guys here told us, those are the tough guys. And Freddie Glover said, no, they can't be the tough guys. Because in football, Lomas said, the guys that got to fight, he says, they're the wimps. They can't take it. They don't know how to do it. And he says, to us, he said, we try to goad people into fighting, so they'll get the penalties. And, we want them to look bad, when they got to start fighting and everything. And we make fun of them. And he said, that's what we do. And he says, in hockey, it's different. Well, it's just a different attitude. In football, what do coaches tell you? When you get in the end zone, act like you expect to get there. And that's how I feel about when you react to the criticism about you, then they win because they now know that it bothered you. It bothered you. And now you're going to face that all the time. So I just keep my mouth shut, take pride in the fact that you've defeated that, and that's how I would move forward.
But hasn't that door already been open for Kadri though? I mean, he wears his heart on the sleeve. Like things do get to him, and that's why he's got. So that's the way I would deal with it is just not acknowledge it, So you move on, and what was it that the great Henry Ford said when he got caught with the blonde? He goes, "Never complain, never explain." So sure, yeah. Well, I went through it. Brian Berard represented him most of his career, and he was out come back from his eye injury. And it was out in Columbus, and he was going to be trying out for the U.S. Olympic team. And they did a test on him, drug test on him. Now, at that point, the NHL did not have any ban on any drugs. They didn't test at all. Obviously, with the Olympics, they did. He had been using some drugs during the summer and tested positive for it. And so we found out, I spoke to the people at USA, the Olympic Committee at the IOC, and said, Tom, there's no way, it's clear cut. He did them. That's it. So my advice to Brian was, and I think you and I discussed it at the time too. My advice to Brian was, listen, you get up, you do an interview or you do a press conference, you say, listen, I did it. I was wrong. I made a mistake. and it was over with. And then the next day, there's nothing more written about it because that's what more are you going to say? If you tried to deny it, now it becomes a big story or whatever. So
I remember the story that I told you about the greatest apology I ever heard about. I was not at this wedding, but it was a friend of mine who was at this wedding, where for reasons that are still unclear to this morning, they held the bachelor party the night before the wedding, and the best man had had too much to drink. And so he missed the ceremony. Now, originally people were angry, and then they started to worry. But so they went to the wedding reception. Everyone's trying to find him. They can't find him. He walks into the wedding rehearsal. Everybody runs over. He pushes him back. He walks up to the microphone where the band's going to be. He takes the microphone, and he says, "I want to apologize to the bride and groom. My behavior was reprehensible. And there's nothing I can say right now that's going to make this better. I'm going to try to act forward in a manner that's not going to distract anymore from this wedding. I've done too much already to take away from this one. So let's just, leave this alone for now and let this bride and groom celebrate." Yeah. And it turned out to be the greatest apology ever, because now if you went after him on this, now you were, you were doing more to add another distraction. And it was a brilliant apology.
I remember when you and I discussed it too at Burrard, one of the stories we told was, with little kids, you're raising kids. If a child goes into a grocery store and steals a chocolate bar, what's the best thing to do? You march the child back into the store,
right? For sure.
Get the chocolate bar back and apologize for doing it. What are you going to do at that point?
That's exactly right. And, America loves a repentant sinner.
Yeah, I mean, totally.
We do,
When I watch TV, whether it's some celebrities or politicians, and they've done something wrong and they're trying to blame somebody else or deny it, I'm thinking to myself, when are you going to learn? Like, it's just like you said, we would rather you just say, I screwed up, I made a mistake.
Yeah, well, because then what else are you going to say?
Yeah,
you can't keep whipping them.
Yeah, totally. It's going to ruin. Yeah, it kind of ruins the fun, right?
Right. Yeah. No. So. It's the best way to go is just to acknowledge it and try to move on. But
with Kadri, I hear you, and I don't disagree with you with what your theory is there. But like, to me, the door's already open for him, so I don't think it makes a difference.
Yeah, nah. I mean, I get it too. I mean, some of it is your own personal pride. It just wells up in you, and it's just like everybody. Don't you? How many people has some story about somebody saying you'll never make it. And
we talked about that, and I thought about it more since we talked about it. I think it was last week. I've talked to a few guys that I played with, and almost they're all saying the same thing. That they're
it's I don't care what profession you're in or what you do. We all know people, and a lot of them who said, "Yeah, so and so said I'd never amount to anything." And, like you said, they have a chip on their shoulder. And I always say, well, I must be in the minority because nobody ever told me I couldn't do anything. Maybe I just didn't register on anybody's, radar, because I don't remember anybody commenting.
Maybe you were too smart and you just didn't pay attention.
I guess so. Or just, no one cared enough to actually comment on whether I was going to make it or not about it, anything. But I never really had a conversation like that. Another interesting topic that I had said to Tom that I wanted to talk about, because I read on a news break that the Supreme Court has ruled in favor of the football assistant coach who wants to be able to pray after the game, after a football game. And the problem
on the field, right?
On the field, yes. Now, we see that all the time in the NFL games. The guys go on their own and they go in the end zone, and so you see players from both teams usually go down there and deal with. But this is obviously in a public school, and the issue has been, and they've been, although this could change too, but the Supreme Court has ruled consistently that they don't want any praying beforehand, because there's all denominations, not believers, non-believers, and there's the feeling that there's pressure then on the athletes, or really the students is what you're talking about, to be involved or face some form of repercussion, even if it's not intentional. And so the thought was best not to do it. Have your moment of private reflections. You can do with it what you want. You can pray. You can think about the game, whatever you want to do. And that's what some coaches do, a moment of reflection, not to do that. Now, this guy did this, and what's fascinating fascinating to me is that he has gotten a lot of support from a lot of coaches around the conference and some players who wanted to be involved in it. Now, it's interesting. Under normal circumstances, I would probably side with the folks that it's too hard because there's too many thoughts about religion, and best not to do it. Just do private reflection. However, after the game, we see it in the NFL. No one feels any pressure to go or to not go to that corner of the end zone. And what's the difference here? Even though it's a public school.
But can I interrupt you, Kev? Do we know there's no pressure? Maybe there is pressure, but the players, they just don't want to say, no, I'm not going to go. They feel like if I don't go down there with everybody else or with a coach, and that's going to hurt me in my playing time in some way.
Yeah, no, well, that's basically what the ACLU position would be. Yeah, that even though that there's no overt pressure. Right. So, I just threw that out there because normally, as I said, I'm with the what the traditional Supreme Court ruling would be. It's just best that we don't do any of that. Well, I wanted to bring this up because religion historically has been a non-starter in hockey dressing rooms.
Shouldn't laugh at this. I think back
to it's not. There are baseball chapels in baseball. They're pretty significant. We all know what happens after NFL games. If you stay after an NFL game, you're going to see 35 or 40 players praying in the end zone afterward. In basketball, I don't know that it's as overt, but I think there's some religion in there. You don't see much religion in hockey. It's just not a thing. Going back to Harold Ballard, I remember when Jack Campbell came up, was drafted. He is a very religious man, or was at that point. I don't know what his religious conviction is these days, but at that point he was, and he felt like he had to address it when teams interviewed him. He just wanted to make sure that everybody, that's how, he was concerned that how he was going to be viewed because he was religious. So, most guys who are religious keep it to themselves. Yeah. And, I don't know, do you know of any team chapel services in hockey?
There's individual players that they tried to have a chapel, they would try to get together regularly before games. And
how'd that go over?
Well, it was one of those cases where some guys just didn't want to be insulting and say no. Some wanted to be, maybe if it was a fringe player, he felt like he had to do it. If it was a higher level player, but in most cases, it was kind of like, oh, really? You have to do that? I think pretty much every player that I know back then, and probably even more so now, respects the right of the individual to be religious in his own way. That's a different story. But when they try to draw it into the team dynamic, it's frowned upon. Not because they're anti-religious. It's more that we're here to concentrate on playing hockey.
Right.
That's the way I view it. I've told the story before with Mark Osborne, one of the greatest team players. I sat beside him in the locker room, right playland with the Rangers, and he was very religious. And, I was Mr. Smart Ass all the time joking around, but I had learned enough to pull him aside and say to him, Mark, listen, I totally respect your religion, the way you carry yourself and everything. Do you mind if we joke around about your religion in front of the other guys? And he was nice enough to say, yes, Tom, that'd be great. That'd be funny and everything. He was laughing about it. And I made sure, I said, okay, I don't want to be pressuring you. This is, it's very serious. If you don't want this to happen, I won't do it. But if you're okay with it, then we'll have some fun. So he was fine. In fact, he really enjoyed it. He walked in the locker room and I'd say, praise the Lord, Mark. And he's going, praise the Lord, Tommy. And everybody's looking at me like, what are you doing, you idiot? You don't do that. But he knew what was going on and he was fine with it. And he was good.
Yeah. And I'm aware of religious players as well that I've talked to about it. But, it's just not as organized. In baseball, it's organized. There are, in the teams, there's chapels and in the NFL, it's not organized, but I think it is organized, but in saying that at the end, well, you know what? I'm going to bring this. I'm going to backtrack on what I said. Every year at the draft, there's a chapel meeting there. The Christian athletes that I think hockey players involved of, because I remember talking to a couple former players who were there to go to that.
Right.
There's been some interesting guys who are quite religious.
Yeah, and like you remember, Mike Gardner had a fantastic career. He was very religious, and I think he's a very well respected guy. I don't think anybody looked at him any differently. It's just that was part of who he was. That, as people talked about him, that was part of what they said, and I don't recall it being said in a bad way or even making fun or anything. That's just part of who he was. Mike Gardner's a great skater, and Mike Gardner's religious, and that was.
No, that's exactly right. So. Yeah, but it is interesting. I mean, we've talked and identified before how our sport is a little different, though, than other sports, just in terms of the way they, treat, the way, like I mentioned before. I find it, because hockey is such nice guys about how they treat, injured people like they're dead to us. It seems incongruent. Compared to, but that's just the tradition of it all. We don't think about them; they can't help us. We've got to move on without them.
Yeah, totally.
So
it is. But it's true. Yeah, we were going to discuss. I was very fortunate. Yesterday they had the Gay Pride Parade in Manhattan, and Brian and Mullen and I represented the New York Rangers at the parade, and it was incredible. Like, the number of people there were incredible. They were the passion going towards it. I think even more so. I did not see the front of the parade, but they had the Planned Parenthood group apparently was starting off the parade. I think particularly because of the ruling recently from the Supreme Court and the Roe versus Wade. So it was. I would be honest. If you'd asked me 10, 15 years ago if I'd be going to a gay parade in Manhattan, I probably would have said to you, no way. But it was really interesting to see, again, the passion that these people live their life with. So it was interesting. Yeah,
for sure. And Brian Burke has been involved in several, parades. It's been since his son was killed in an accident. He has marched in them proudly as well. And of course, it's been the mission of the NHL to, hockey is for everyone.
And they had people there at the parade. There was the NHL, the Islanders, the Devils, and the Rangers, and all of MSG actually. So it was.
Yeah, we had the recently on. I don't know what the day was. Was it Gay Pride Day or whatever it was? But they had. I know the Red Wings put out on their Twitter feed. Support for that. And Aaron Ward, who had played for them, said, I'm really proud of the Red Wings for doing this.
Yeah.
And then, of course, he faced some criticism for supporting that. And then, of course, all the people then rose to Aaron Ward's defense too. So, it just brings about strong feelings. And if you're going to comment on it, you open yourself up to all kinds of things. But, the league has been very supportive of gay pride, and the Hockey for Everyone initiative isn't strictly about that. It's, should be open to everybody of any walk of life. So it's
race, religion, or anything. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So,
yeah, no, you know what? And I agree with it too. Remember when, how long was it? A couple of years ago, the young boy came out, a young player came out and acknowledged that he was gay. Junior. After. And, I was really proud of the hockey community, how they stood up. It was like, what I like about most, it really wasn't even a big deal. It was like, proud of them, move on. Yeah. No,
that's right. And, it's not, certainly not like that always, but, I think most pro players have been on record as saying they could, live with a gay player in the locker room, and so it's I don't know that. I'm trying to think. It's like there must have been gay players that we simply just didn't know about. I mean, statistically, there would have to be.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely.
So, I mean, I don't know. I've talked to many people who said, what's the big deal? And that's the way it should be. That should be the attitude.
Right. I played with players who were rumored to be gay. I'm not going to mention any names, obviously, but there are rumors about them being gay. And I remember feeling like, I mean, so yeah, it's a big deal. I mean, I don't want to get too graphic, but I mean, you grow up as a hockey player, I was an athlete. I know the hockey world, showering with men all the time. Anyways, so
right? Yeah,
I know there's a lot more to it than that, but
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, we've really gone off
Yes.
on a tangent today. That's for sure. But now the season's over. We'll exhale for about 72 hours. Then we're going to jump into the draft.
Yeah.
And then a lot of interesting stuff is going to happen. Like we may see the end of Evgeny Malkin, Sidney Crosby as a 1-2 center punch. I mean, he may or may not resign with the Pittsburgh Penguins. We don't know right now what Carey Price's future is with the Montreal Canadiens. I mean, this is one of the great goalies of this generation.
That's a good point. Like if they decide to let go of him, where does he end up, man?
Well, or is he going to play? I mean, we just don't know. I mean, his medical issues. I mean, there's just so much uncertainty here. We're going to have that unusual situation with the Arizona Coyotes next season, where they're going to be playing in a rink that is smaller than some junior ranks in Canada.
Do we have more and better talented players that are becoming unrestricted free agents? Evander Kane, Giroux?
More than usual. That's how I would phrase it. Now, some of the ones, like I sort of suspected that Patrice Bergeron was going to come back to Boston. I never really believed that was going to happen. But Nazem Kadri is going to be free. I'm pretty sure they're not going to re-sign him simply because he wants too much money. He wants to be paid.
And he get too much money too. I'd like to see that there's a kid who's gone through all the bad stuff. He's an incredible competitor. He's a great player. He's made his mistakes, but he still plays on the edge. Man, he's the kind of guy you want in your lineup if you want to win. He's proven it now. Yeah.
Well, what's interesting, I had a conversation about, is he worthy of getting that $8 or $9 million contract? And I thought, and then he scored that goal. That game-winning goal, and I'm thinking that goal may have been worth $1.5 million.
Has to get surgery on his thumb, comes back and plays, and surgery.
Yeah.
Like if you want to build some character and culture on your team, he's that kind of guy that you want, right?
What do you give Evander Kane though? And then knowing that if depending what the ruling is, that contract may be thrown right out, and he may go back to the San Jose Sharks.
I know you and I discussed this before. We're shaking our head. I don't know how that's all going to play out.
I don't either.
Yeah.
So well,
they don't want him back.
Yeah. Couldn't you just then trade him to the team that he signs with for $1.50? I mean,
I guess you could. Yeah, in theory. Yeah, because neither one of them wants to go back to San Jose. He doesn't want to go to San Jose.
And the Sharks don't want him.
Yeah.
So I guess that's what would happen is they would.
Yeah, they must have. I'm just surprised that it's gone this far because, again, unless both sides, being the Players Association and the owners, have come to some agreement, if the collective bargaining agreement says you cannot redo a contract. Once you sign that contract, that is the contract. You can't change it around. You can't do anything with it. Now, unless, as in his case, he broke some rules and they said, okay, we're voiding the contract. So I don't know what that's interesting.
Yeah. And then we've got, I think there's some other interesting, unrestricted free agents as well.
Here's a question real quick too. Is the Bradman gone Panair? No, not a chance. Yeah. I don't know. First of all, that's a big contract he's got. The Rangers are really happy with him. He did not do well in the playoffs, but he's too much of a proven performer. So.
Yeah. So we got some, the Penguins, have some, Peter Forsberg is out there too. Philip Forsberg. Yeah. I always want to call him Peter.
Yeah, that's
Philip
right.
Forsberg is out there as well.
Oh, and since we talked last, Pete DeBoer, you had mentioned the rumor about, not Pete DeBoer. Yeah. Who just signed in Florida? Paul Maurice.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had mentioned that was the rumor that was going on. And I think that day after we got off the show, he signed there, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, and Barry's going to put his feet up. Barry Trotz is not going to coach this year. So, and it's interesting. I don't think this is a risk for him. I think they'll be happy to have him next. Some team will next. So
Listen, he's a fantastic man. We've joked around before about how good a coach you think he is, but I think he's a fantastic man on top of it. So I'm saying this more as a person, not as I have heard rumors about his health. So I don't know if he does want to come back, but I agree with you. I think he's built a good enough reputation. If he takes a year off and wants to go back, he can still do it. But
well, I mean, that's a decision he'll have to make, but for sure that. You look, and Bruce Boudreau came back after being away. John Tortorella came back after being away. And the Red Wings have not picked their coach yet, but, everyone assumes since they were waiting for something, we assume it's for the final to get over so they could interview either Halperin and or Derek Lalonde, who are the assistant coaches for the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Susan brings up a good point. It's Monday. We almost forgot to discuss the meal yesterday. Yesterday, pizza, jalapeno pizza. We had homemade dough. So with the dough, it was 2 cups of bread flour, a cup of almond flour, and a cup of whole wheat flour. So it was a little bit healthier dough. Homemade sauce, jalapenos on it, chicken, tomato. Oh my God!
Chicken on pizza? Boo!
You don't like chicken on pizza? No,
I don't. Yeah,
I've really gotten into capers as well. Capers are very, very healthy for you. It's supposed to be a great antioxidant. Instead of using salt, it's got salt in it, so you don't have to use extra salt. Now, here's a question for you. Question of the day: Is a caper fruit or vegetable?
I don't think I've ever addressed that. I have no idea. So
I had to ask Google. She said to me that he more. The way she said it was not very specific. More of a fruit than a vegetable. Whatever that means. Good job, one of our loyal listeners, Billy Contradidiac, got it here too. Fruit.
I'm gonna actually mention that to my wife. I bet she doesn't know the answer to that. So.
I did. Yeah, I don't know who would know it, but yeah.
Yeah, no. Well, it's not something you give any thought to. So. Anyway, well, we appreciate everyone tuning in. We'll be back on Wednesday. I'm sure there'll be a lot more to talk about. The trade rumor mill will be cranking up as well. So if you want to read me, I'm at DetroitHockeyNow.com, HockeyBuzz.com.
And if you want to listen to the radio version of the show again, you go to radio.co at 365 Sports. We'll see everybody on Wednesday.